Hey everyone, welcome to the Relationship Smith Show. We are live tonight with Hey everyone, welcome to the Relationship Smith Show. We have with us today the very amazing Lesley Diana from the Promotion People. She has so much experience in the entertainment field. First, well, let me start with my intro. She's been in entertainment since her first movie, Stag, and since then has worked on nearly 100 pictures and helped promote thousands of people. But before we get into all that, hello, Lesley.
Hi, nice to be here. Nice to see you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. You've had a very interesting life. You started writing, and then you moved into fitness instruction for 11 years. And then you got into fashion and you owned brick and mortar stores.
Right.
And then you had a talk show, and now you're into entertainment publicity. And I say now, it's been decades that you've worked with so many amazing people and projects. Your IMDb is like a list of stuff. I went through it today and I'm like, I need to see that. Oh, I remember that. That's awesome. The people you've worked with, I'm pretty sure people can't say the name of an actor around you without going, yep. It's really, truly amazing. And clearly you love what you do.
I do.
All that shines. I've seen a couple interviews. I've read interviews. But I want to know something. What former career do you miss the most?
Perhaps the talk show, because I used to learn so much. I'm sure you find that doing this show, is you just learn so much from other people. So I really enjoyed that. But what was so great is that every career was right for the time in my life. And a lot of them were doubled up, like my talk show and my fitness show and writing my book were all at the same time. And so I've been kept busy.
I know you said that writing was not your first love.
Right.
Do you love it now? Sometimes it's just work.
Because being a publicist is a lot of writing because you're writing press releases all the time. Yes, I like it. Actually, I like it. It's time to sit down, be quiet, get your ideas formulated, and put them on paper and see how they turn out.
I like it too. It's just sometimes when it fights you.
Yeah. And then
or when you think you've said it.
Back full circle because now I'm also writing for a magazine. So it's exciting.
I'm sure. That's the ultimate compliment when you're like, hey, we want your words. Tell us what's going on here. Can you please make it happen? I love that level of success when people come to you and say, please. When you've transitioned from these careers, and I hate you're still doing a lot of them in every time you move on. Do you find that like your interpersonal relationships or your relationships professionally, you need to have new rules set up? So whenever you're running a brick and mortar store, you had to have rules for people that walked in or how you treat them or how that's going to happen. And then whenever you're doing promotions for a client, you have to have very different. How do you what are your base rules for who you are and how you treat people? And then what are some of the ways you might modify in different situations that you've been in?
A lot of them kind of transpire into the others. I used to have 35 employees, and one thing I decided right off the start was not to get too involved in their personal lives. And I still do that with my clients now because I just want to keep it professional. So that's, or else you can sometimes get so involved with the problems and so on and so forth, which might cloud the professional part of it. So I think that's one of the aspects that I've carried through my careers.
I mean, it sounds like a really, really good rule, actually. People can't get upset with you if you don't give them bad advice. Like, hey, maybe you should break up. Like, that was the worst thing I ever did. Thank you, Lesley. Do you one thing I'm curious about, because you've ended up in a place in life that I'm sure you couldn't predict whenever you graduated from high school. Do you still have friends from the early days? Like, have they followed you through all of this?
Because I moved cities and some people just stayed there. And
that's always hard.
Yeah. So, but what's very interesting is I was born in England. I moved to Saskatchewan, Regina, which is right above North Dakota, because most people in the States don't know that
We're
much
bad.
about Canadian geography. And then I moved to another city. But what's interesting, when the city I lived in, Saskatoon, where I had my TV shows and started my fitness studio, my stores, and so on, most of my, in fact, pretty much all my friends have also moved to Vancouver.
I
So
have
other
some
than
questions.
my brother and my sister and my parents living in Saskatchewan, I really don't have that many friends from there. They're all moved out with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have some questions about Vancouver at the end of the show. So if anybody from Vancouver is watching, let's see what I come up with. No, I'm fascinated. I actually a big fondness for Canada. I try to visit, and it's just Niagara Falls or that area at least once a year. The Canadian people are awesome, but we'll get to that on the end. Like we've had several Canadian people on here as guests, and it's one of those things. Like even after the end of the show, I might find out. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, that's why it was such a great interview. One of our favorite, and we might touch on it a little bit later, was Eric Violette, and he was very famous in the United States for a bunch of commercials he did. But in Canada, he's less known as an actor. He's done commercials in his area. But it was just one of those fantastic interviews, and I'm like, oh, we need to talk to more Canadians. You guys got it. I don't know what it is.
A few weeks, so that's kind of exciting.
Nice. You're what in a few weeks?
I said you're going to be talking to a few Canadians in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Just perusing their work, and there's some names and faces. I'm like, I know that face, I know that person, and I'm looking forward to getting even deeper. So everybody who is interested, make sure you subscribe, and so you don't miss those interviews. They're coming up. We have them. We have the schedule. We have to get it out there in a more digestible format. Back to you, Lesley, because this is about you. I love the fact that we go for your clients, but I do want to talk to you. So your first gig doing promotion for movies was in I have to say the date, 1997 film Stag. There's a couple films named Stag, and I went through a couple of them just to make sure I got the exact right one. I did the homework on it, and I want to know, like, you've done this a lot at this point. You probably have a comfort level, but what was your first day on set? Doing your job, interviewing people? Like, what was the very first day? Because you've never really done anything like that before.
True. Well, my first movie, I did the release publicity. So there's basically two areas of publicity for a film. The unit publicist does it when the film is being produced, and we have another, it could be the same publicist that does it when the movie comes out. So with Stag, it was when the movie came out. So we had the premiere in Vancouver, and it was great. We had a big press conference, and we must have had 15 press there. So that was very exciting for my first time out. Pretty much got everybody in town out for it. And it was exciting. And then the nice thing too is Gavin Wilding, who I credit for getting me into the business, he had everybody dress up like they were going to a stag. So all the women had to dress up wear men's jackets and ties and so on, and really made it an event. So it was very cool. And they were happy, and then they hired me for Christina's House. And then I got to do the Rodney Dangerfield movie, My Five Wives.
How was that?
That was amazing. It was really a great experience. Of course, everybody wanted to talk to Rodney, so that was cool. And I've had and I also got to do the EPK, which is the electronic press kit. Mm-hmm. Because often on films, they will hire a company to come in and do the EPKs. And I was able to do the EPK for the company. And what we do is we sit down with the actors and ask them all about their role in the movie. It's basically all about the movie and their characters and so on. But this still is probably one of my most exciting days as a publicist. I got to go up to the top of a mountain and interview Rodney Dangerfield in the snow. We're both sitting on the director's chairs in the snow. Then I got to go down to the Sutton Hotel and interview Jerry Stiller by the swimming pool. And Jerry was supposed to leave that day, but because it was Rodney Dangerfield and it was the one day we were doing the EPK, he stuck around, and he took the hop on hop off bus so he could see all of Vancouver, because his interview was in the afternoon, which I thought was pretty great. And he was such a nice fellow. And then in the evening, I had to go out to a tennis court and interview Andrew Dice Clay. And this was the very last scene of the day, and it was a long day, and he was all ready to go and relax and have a drink. But because it was Rodney Dangerfield's movie, he stuck around and did the interview with me. So
it's amazing. It's amazing what a legend can do.
Exactly. So it was a pretty great day, and all of them had so many good things to say about Rodney, and the fact that he had helped so many people with their careers.
Yep. I've never heard a bad word about Rodney. And actually, I was curious if you got to meet in the process. Did you get to talk to Andrew Clay versus Dice Clay, like just the person who's not the character?
Well, because it was at the end of the day, I guess in some respects, yes.
Yeah,
I would say so. It was a long time ago, but I just found him, wonderful and cooperative, but still had that edge to him.
Yeah, I've been a fan. I actually thought Ford Fairlane was one of the best movies made that year. I done like interviews now. He's actually Andrew Clay, and the Dice aspect is, he's like, hey, that was a character. And I also know there was part of his life where like it was very hard to distinguish between the two, because and that's something I really want to get into with somebody like him, to find out when to let the character go versus the actor. Right. Whereas Paul Rubens and Pee Wee were so intertwined so much that I think it took a lot to actually see the Rubens character. So
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah. I'm curious about that, because it's when acting is a full-time job sometimes. Like, when you get off stage, you still have to be what they think you are for so long. And then when you get home, you're, the shy little quiet person who just wants to be left alone.
Well, I think Andrew Clay just sticking around and doing that was something, because trust me, I've been on movies that I've had shows come up from the US to Vancouver to interview somebody in particular, and then they get here and that particular actor won't do it.
Yeah.
So for somebody like that to do it at 11 o'clock at night, I think is pretty.
And to add a little more impressiveness to this, Andrew Clay, he didn't go into comedy. He didn't love comedy growing up. Like most comedians will tell you, like they loved comedy, they went into it. Dice Clay was not. He created the Dice character specifically to sell the character. He did it for commercial reasons, and he was very correct in doing so and making fun of Fonzie and the things he was making fun of. So for him to recognize Rodney Dangerfield for who Rodney Dangerfield is and to do whatever it takes, that says a lot about his character.
I would say.
It wasn't out of, I grew up with him and loved him. It was, he's the real deal, and I'm going to do this for him. Hey, everyone. Relationships. We are live tonight with Eric.